Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and I have the pleasure of presence of Dr. Sudhir Bisht joining me from New Delhi. He's an author, a columnist, and has a lot of experience of having served in the corporate world. More important right now, while we look at the way we were taught to look at the business environment while we were doing our MBA, and sometimes political climate changes in such at such a fast pace that financial world finds itself in a state where it is very difficult to find balance. There are multiple factors. Today we are taking a broad look at how democracy system functions and how there are certain decisions which causes a lot of disruption. So we will sort of switch between India and America, Sudhirji, and with you, let me recollect for our viewers that April started with a bang in terms of the Liberation Day declared by President Trump here in United States of America, where he wants to have a sense of parity in terms of the tariff that is imposed between different nations. So this is an overall sort of a jolt for the whole world in one way. And in India, we have heard a lot about Waqf board. Many people know about it. Many people do not know very well. But off the cuff, if I say that there were certain provisions which were added to Waqf, the power of the Waqf board, whereby if they claim certain property to belong to them, then it was the onus lied on the party to prove otherwise. So
Right.
it was kind of termed as undemocratic by many people, and so there has been one major bill of amendment that was passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in New Delhi. So let us begin with America first, Sudhirji. How do you see the decision and the stand taken by President Trump? And also, I hasten to add that this resulted into market crashing and wiping out of over $3 trillion. What that means for a common man, help us understand.
Okay. So what President Trump proclaimed from the White House, and ironically, it is called the Rose Garden. From where he said all of this. So personally, I think that the Lotus Party or the ruling party in India has weathered the storm rather well. Actually, if you see, if you see, let's see how the local press has reacted to what Trump did by levying all the tariffs. So as you are showing on your screen also, China, the tariff charged by the US 67%, European Union 39%, Vietnam 90%. So this is not only drastic. This is like, it's a watershed moment in the bilateral trade or in the global trade of the world. So all the talks about World Trade Organization and how trade should be freer, perhaps that era is ending, huh? At least for the time being. And once again we are going back into protectionism. So from a free trade, it appears that we are going into protectionism. But then these are crests and troughs in the global
Yeah,
trade.
allow me to interrupt, and just for the sake of the way the word protectionism is being used. So, from the point of view of America, it was
Right.
one-way protectionism
I
because,
agree.
yeah, yeah. So,
I quite agree with you. That's why I said, that's why I have not started by as most social commentators would do. I have not started by showing all my anger and angst against President Trump. One has some understanding of what he's doing and why he's doing that, because after all, this was in his equivalent of an election manifesto. He had said that he will make America great again, and he wants to bring back jobs to India. More
America,
importantly, that
America.
he wants to do by bringing production back to India, means, I mean, US. He
Hmm.
wants to bring production back to the US. But is tariff the only way to go about it? Is what we need to discuss. But this had tremendous impact world over. However, if you see, and I'm reading from Times of India. It says India gets slapped with tariff while others get punched. So that means the tariff blow on India is relatively, I would say, it is relatively less harsh as compared to for example, the change in tariff in China. I'm talking of change, the delta. it is 54%. Vietnam, it is 46%. Thailand, 36%. India, it is only 26%. So the
Yeah,
only
no,
country,
see the equation as I was perceiving from the
right,
chart that was being displayed by President Trump. In general, he has made 50% of the tariff that is imposed by the other country on America
right,
on them, and there is few countries there are exceptions here and there a little bit. So rounding about, so instead of 19 to, then they America is imposing 10, things like that.
right,
So in the case of India, it is exactly 50%, 52 to 26%. Now, Sudhir, I don't know whether it's too early to understand uh, the nitty gritty in terms of how it is going to affect what that would also be related to the commodities that are being exported and imported. So in case of
right.
India, maybe India doesn't have those many high value exports for America. So perhaps it, but I suspect it is going to have a, a very sort of challenging situation it will create for the garment exporters as well as the furniture and other goods exporters, perhaps. How do you see that?
Actually, Ashokji, the exact impact will not be known immediately, because, eventually we will have to sit down and make our metrics as to the textile on Vietnam has gone up how much percentage, on Bangladesh has gone how much percentage. For example, I'm consulting a company which is basically into textile processing. So my client asked me something, so I did a lot of research and I came up, and most of the research papers also are showing that, in fact, Indian textile sector, I'm talking of textile, I'm not talking of telecom, oil and gas, gems. The textile sector is likely to gain, is likely
How?
to gain, because the main competition which is coming from Bangladesh and countries like other countries like Vietnam, the tariffs are higher on that side. So that means, although the value or the price that the US importer will pay will be higher, but the delta in India
I
that will
got
go
you.
up
I
is
got you.
lower in
So
comparison to the other
overall
countries.
impact, so it will be more competitive. The Indian
Yeah,
products will
yeah,
be more
yeah, yeah, yeah,
competitive. Yeah.
yeah. But we have to be mindful of micro side and the macro side. So when we take the macro side, how will the US consumer react to an increase in the tariff? So suppose the tariff, for example, tariff in textile, which is currently at 6%, if it is going up to 36%, 6 to 9% to 30 to 36%, that means roughly 29-30% increase. So if 39% increase, then it is, and if tariff constitutes, let us say, 18 to 20% of the overall,
Sorry, let me understand. Why are you coming up with the figure 39% while President Trump is talking about 26%? So it will.
actually, no, actually 26% is an average figure, when
Okay.
you see, it is like this. When you take the tax hike in every item, and when you give it a weighted average, then at the last what you draw is around 26%. But like in textile, from 9% to 36%, so it becomes 26% only, the increase is 26%. So 26% increase is not a small increase for the buyer in US. So my from the macro angle, what I am more interested to know, and the results will be known 6 months down the line. How will the US consumer react to it? So a t-shirt, for example, in US, a guy wears a t-shirt 20 times before he discards it. So will he start to wear it at 40 times instead of 20 times? Or will he start to wear it 22 times? Because that will have an impact on the journey of the movement of t-shirts from India to US. I'm giving a simplistic example. So the impact, but the impact, the macro impact, I'm worried about. But if you see how much will it impact Indian economy per se, so there is a study which has been done by Siddhartha, and he's done a very good job actually on Times of India, and he says this will impact the Indian economy by minus 0.2%. Minus 0.2%. While minus 0.2% may appear to be small, but if you see in absolute terms, it's not so small. But other countries, for example, Vietnam will be worst affected. It will be impacted, the tariff will impact it negatively, the GDP negatively by 7%. So that is the country, because it depends upon US. for its GDP. So 7% impact. So similarly, the impact of Japan is 0.5%. Malaysia is 0.2%. So India is among the countries which will be least impacted.
Okay,
It
so
will be least.
let's go to another side which is related to those who are very much into investment side of
Right.
money, and they are feeling pinch or punch or whatever very very badly, and yet the approval rating of President Trump is all time high. How do you see this interesting phenomena?
Wow, see, I was thinking about it for 48 hours actually, 24 hours, 40 hours. And I thank you for asking me this question, because I'm going to tell you the feelings for the first time to you. I've not even discussed with my students. I am trying to relate it with the demonetization effect in India. Demonetization caused hardships even to the poor people, but they supported it, but they supported demonetization. And if you ask me, even today people don't speak ill of demonetization even till date, although many people were standing in the queue. So while people know that the inflation may go up, while the things may be costlier, they eventually are viewing this as something which will be good for their country in long run, and there will be more production, there will be more factories. So economists, philosophers, and sociologists and business magnates, they tend to ignore the wisdom of common man. So common American Indian, common American citizen, common Indian citizen, they have a mind of their own. They don't necessarily get swayed by what is written in the newspaper. They also do their own back of the envelope calculations, and they
So there
and
are general criticism which anybody using his side of common sense would come up with, that it is going to be very challenging for consumers in America. They'll end up paying more for the same commodities. That is one side. Secondly, while America takes this stand, it is going to be an unpopular country on the global sphere, and that would also affect the image that America has enjoyed so far. But whether that image has some tangible benefit or America, we do not know how we can measure that. And allow me to also recollect, many times President Trump has said that Prime Minister Modi, is a very good friend of mine. He's a good man, and he also probably referred that Indians are lucky to have him. I think he was responding to one journalist who asked a question about Indo-US relation or something. The question is, do you see America losing its ground in terms of having its uh, commanding power to to some geopolitical equations in terms of different countries, etc., or it won't have much impact on that side of America being a superpower?
See, see, militarily, American superpower cannot be denied or it cannot be challenged for many decades, not years, decades. America is a military superpower. There's no denying that. Uh, but China is fast catching up. The way they are coming with sixth generation missiles or missiles, whatever you want to call it, and the way China has made taken rapid strides in AI. So China is going to challenge America for supremacy, but it will not dethrone America. That's in my mind. In 1 or 2 decades, perhaps it will take more than 2 decades or so when it will try to catch up. But that's not necessarily very bad for the world. So I personally don't think that. Uh, See, America is still considered to be the most vibrant democracy, an ideal democracy where people want to. Many countries aspire to catch up with America in terms of freedom of speech. America is still considered to be the main magnet or the hub of research. It is also still considered to be a land of, millions of dreams. It is also considered to be a hotspot for startups, where capital is available for the poorest with the brightest mind. So I don't think, and people are lining up to buy the card which is sold for $5 million, I believe. So I don't
That's
see,
unbelievable. Yeah.
it's unbelievable. So I don't see America losing its pole position in
Yeah, so
in the.
let me also recollect with you that uh, I personally find President Trump is very much at ease, though he is talking about issues which are causing unease for millions of people many times. So in this context, also he said that what I am doing now, finally on 2nd April, is something that I have talked about 30, 40 years ago. So look at my old videos when I look handsome. Though I'm still handsome. These are the words of President Trump, slightly here and there. But so he has a way of connecting with people for a sense of transparency. So what is his mind, his heart? You feel that he's speaking his mind. He's not making sort of a camouflage. And nowadays, I've seen that while there is some uh, issue where it requires a lot of explanations, he calls the officials or the representatives to explain, and then he takes over. So journalists or the people get the exact details. So he doesn't go about sharing details in that sense. Now, coming back to President Trump and this tariff readjustment, I want to also emphasize it requires a lot of courage to take such decision, which is not going to be received well, and you are kind of shaking up the whole status quo. Uh, Now, what I want to ask you is, while we talked about the potential increase in the commodity prices for Americans, and he says India, America is there to win big, but right now it looks like America is going to lose. How do you see his optimism and conviction from your point of view, from where you see it?
See, actually, we don't have the like in case of events which have already happened, we have this advantage of hindsight. We don't have and I'm not a soothsayer, but these are tough decisions which he is taking, and it's a kind of a double-edged sword. Suppose this fails, then what happens? So I personally believe, I think President Trump has been a successful businessman. And like all successful businessmen, like I'm a consultant to many businesses, we always have a what if situation. So if this happens, then this. If this happened, then this. So actually, he's treading on the path which is risky, but the path is not uncertain. So what is the difference between uncertainty and risk? In case of uncertainty, we don't know the outcomes, and in case of risk, we know this can be a good outcome, this can be a neutral outcome, this can be a bad outcome, and the percentage of this outcome happening is this. So he is certainly taking risk, but he is not charting the course of uncertainty. I can tell you this as a management professor and a consultant. So this is all, I mean, there is a, he may look to be very flippant and that, but all the decisions which he's taking, lot of research and lot of study has gone into it. That is number one. Number two, if you speak to middle class boys and girls about President Trump, one thing is for sure. What they say is that he may not be a very learned man, but he is not a devious man. He is trying
Mhm.
to do good for his country, and he may not be good at controlling his emotions, but he actually speaks his heart. So such people are, their decisions may be unpopular, but it is not that they are disliked as the media hype would like to create, so and let me also tell you, the public opinion per se is not too much influenced by stock markets or stock market crashing or not crashing. Common man is more worried about, they want to see a guy, okay, will he make the my life better and the life of my kids better. So suppose all these production factories which China has built along the US Mexico border, uh, if all of that is transferred to America, so think of the job opportunities it can create, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of activity, and this can have a multiplier effect. So he is trying to do good for his country, just like we want to do good for our
Yeah.
country.
So let me just bring in, and today we'll stay with President Trump in America. We just have a few minutes to go. What has happened is Doge, which was headed or is headed by Elon
Elon
Musk,
Musk.
uh, they decided to get rid of many important or rather functioning government organizations, and that has resulted into thousands of government employees losing their job. But in general, press is not making as much hue and cry about it as one would imagine. Maybe, of course, press is divided. Yet, I don't hear that much noise as you would expect in India to happen, or in America also down there. But I think it is going to be tough for many people because of these disruptive decisions. Those who are directly affected, you cannot imagine what they are going through, because being a government employee, as in India, anywhere, you feel that you have a safe job, and you kind of are assured that you will continue to have that basic sort of.
But you know, the common the general public does not seem to appreciate the government servants too much. You know, for example, when the pensions, the assured pension in India was taken away by the Vajpayee and then Manmohan Singh governments, so the general public did not rise up in arms, because you know it generally, like in America, is a capitalist society. So as such, government is not a very big employer in terms of sheer numbers. That is number one. Number two, generally people have this perception that the government employees, I mean, they are overpaid for the kind of outputs which they produce. So there is general apathy if their jobs are gone worldwide. People think there is too much bureaucracy, too much government, so it's a trend all over. So
Yeah,
I don't see
yeah,
the American
yeah.
public rooting for.
Surya, I'm tempted to see the similarities somewhere. In India, there were cases that the Apple factory, or there was some factory where the laborers came with, and it was tossed, and those kind of things have happened. In America, also unprecedented. Many of this Elon Musk Tesla car dealers were attacked, and I never saw those kind of images earlier, where you have many cars being burnt. So to counter that, President Trump brought Elon Musk to White House, and so it was sort of a making use of White House as promotion for Tesla. Many people have criticized it, but I think that has also been a way for President Trump to express his solidarity for the American manufacturers. And he has also, while referring to this tariff situation, said that if you come and have your production here, you will have a lot of tax rebate, etc. Do you see in long term this policy will have some significant impact?
See, it is like this world over. The major economies in the world, if you see South Korea, if you see Taiwan, if you see USA, if you see China, see the in developed countries, the manufacturing or the economic development is primarily led by private sector, and you know it is the bounden duty of the governments to encourage private sector. So it's not like in India where people take a morally high position. So Modi will not is not to be seen with Adani or Ambani. This is all charade, you know. I personally dislike this kind of hypocrisy, because it is the private manufacturers who are creating jobs in India or everywhere in the world. Government simply cannot create jobs. So, you know, America is a society where it was said that what is good for General Motors is good for USA. So, which country can say so boldly that what is good for General Motors, a private company, is good for USA? So, US economy is intricately tied and linked with the private sector. So, I see absolutely no anomaly and no shame. In fact, President Trump bought a Tesla, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he read Tesla and he endorsed it. So I don't see any. I don't see. So it's not like in India where you know you have to fly only Air India. When Air India was nationalized, you could not fly Indigo. All these things are all sham, which world leaders must avoid. There must be proactive support and encouragement to business. If you see chibols, the concept of chibols in South Korea, where the government of Korea ensured the rise of big houses, Daewoo, Hyundai. and LG, many of these companies, it was government which proactively supported by giving them soft loans, by bailing them out in tricky situations. So unless government is seen to be friendly to business, I'm not saying government should dive into the business coffers and they should be whining and dining with them. After all, the government officials have to make a sense of, they have to behave in a sober manner and have to bring a sense of propriety in all of this. But
So, Sudhir,
government
yeah,
should not be
please.
seen to be antagonistic to business.
Absolutely. So, on that note, let me once again share this particular historical image. I never imagined President of USA sharing this kind of a board which talks about reciprocal tariffs, and 2nd April has its own historical significance now for the world. And let's see how this disruption settles down and what kind of world we get to experience with different respective countries that we live in, and especially in America. But as of now, I see that it has increased people's appreciation for President Trump. So democracy, Sudhir, as I conclude, would say is a wonderful way of functioning for a country where one president will take a different route, second may sort of maneuver and make it go with totally different direction.
True.
uh, it has its plus and minus both, but I would see the plus with time, as we have new models of iPhone or any other product coming up. I think this is the updated version of America that we are now going to be experiencing. So thank
Absolutely.
you very much for joining, Suriji.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you with lots of good wishes. This is Ashok.